Then this is the another question from environmental science, and it's a concept related to invasive species. The question is like this: which one of the following is the best description of the term invasive species? Actually, it's a concept question, but why they asked this question is it was in news. For the first time in India, the Zoological Survey of India, they have compiled a list of alien invasive animal species. Okay, for the first time in India, the Zoological Survey of India, they have compiled a list of alien invasive animal species. That's why this invasive species is a current affair. So that's why we have given this question here. Okay, so invasive species. Invasive species is a kind of alien species. So what is an alien species? An alien species means a species which is introduced to a new region from their native region. That means a species will be introduced to a new habitat, okay, and that is known as alien species. That means it's a foreigner. Okay, the species is a foreigner. It can be plant species or it can be animal species, right? And most example in India is this water hyacinth plant. It's a alien plant invasive species, right? So whatever the species come from the outside of an ecosystem is known as alien species. Okay, so when that alien species compete with the native species, and the native species will be suppressed, in that case we call that species as invasive species. That means the native species will be suppressed and the alien species will get the advantage, right? Because the alien species will be having more adaptability, so they will compete with the native species and they will suppress the native species. So that is the term called as invasive species. That means they are invading the new region. The introduced species is invading the new region, and that is known as invasive species. It's an alien species, but that alien species should suppress the native species, and that is known as invasive species. Okay, so let us go through the statements. First statement is like this: species that move from one habitat to another during different lines of the year, as they cannot live in the same environment all year round due to seasonal limitations in factors such as food, sunlight and temperature. And it's also kind of what movement of species from one region to another, and this is due to some environmental changes, and that is known as migratory species. This term A is about the migratory species. We know that migratory species, right? Amur falcon is a migratory species. Then Sarus crane is a migratory species. Siberian crane is a migratory species. So like that, there are lots of many migratory species. That means due to some environmental changes, due to temperature difference or something like that, the species will be moved to some other ecosystems. Okay, and that is known as migration. So the first statement is saying about the species that move from one habitat to another during different times of the year. Okay, as they cannot live in the same environment all year round due to seasonal limitations in food, sunlight and temperature, and that is the term called as migratory species. Okay, so A is not the answer. Then second, a species that has been introduced by humans intentionally or otherwise through human agency or accidentally from one region to another. And that statement B is saying about alien species. Okay, a species introduced by humans or accidentally from one region to another is known as alien species, and it is not a invasive species. So A is not saying about invasive species. B is saying about alien species. Then what about C? An alien species which becomes established in natural or semi-natural ecosystems and is an agent of change and threatens native biological diversity. So that's the correct statement. That means invasive species is an alien species. That means a species that is introduced to a new region. Okay, that is alien species, and which becomes established in the new region, and that will become threat for the native species or native biodiversity, and that is known as invasive species. So here the answer is C. Okay, here the answer is C. Then also go through the fourth statement. species which are the first to colonize previously disrupted or damaged ecosystems, beginning a chain of ecological succession that ultimately leads to a more biologically diverse ecosystem. And the fourth statement is saying about the pioneer species. Okay, pioneer species in ecological succession. So these are the main points regarding this question. Okay, so you need to be thorough with what is an invasive species.